The snow had been falling since dawn, soft and persistent, blanketing our small town in a silence that felt almost sacred. I stood at the kitchen window, watching the flakes drift past the glass, each one catching the pale morning light before disappearing into the white expanse of our backyard. The warmth from the oven behind me created a gentle fog on the window pane, and I traced a small heart in the condensation with my fingertip, feeling the cool glass beneath the moisture. Mom was humming in the living room, that old carol she always sang this time of year, the one about silent nights and holy nights. Her voice carried through the house like a thread of gold, weaving through the scent of cinnamon and nutmeg that filled every corner. I could hear the rustle of tissue paper as she wrapped presents, the soft crinkle and fold, the whisper of ribbon being pulled from its spool. The Christmas tree lights cast dancing shadows on the walls, their warm glow pulsing gently, creating a rhythm that matched my heartbeat. It was 3 days before Christmas, and everything felt suspended in that magical space between anticipation and arrival. The house smelled like childhood itself, like every December I could remember, like safety and wonder mixed together. Pine needles from the tree released their sharp, clean scent whenever anyone brushed past. The cookies cooling on the counter added their own sweetness to the air, butter and vanilla and brown sugar creating an invisible blanket of comfort. Mom called my name from the living room, her voice bright with excitement. When I walked in, she was holding an old photograph, its edges worn soft from years of handling. The paper had that particular texture of old photos, slightly rough, the colors faded to something dreamlike. She patted the cushion beside her on the couch, and I settled into the familiar dip in the fabric, feeling the warmth she had left in the seat. "Look at this," she said, and her voice had changed, become younger somehow, filled with a lightness I rarely heard. The photograph showed 2 girls, maybe 10 or 11 years old, standing in front of a Christmas tree that seemed enormous in the frame. Their arms were around each other, their smiles wide and genuine, their eyes sparkling with the kind of joy that only children at Christmas can truly feel. One of the girls was clearly my mother, though her face was rounder, her hair longer, her expression more carefree than I had ever seen it. "That is Margaret," Mom said softly, touching the other girl in the photo with her fingertip, so gently it was as if she might disturb the memory itself. "We were best friends from the time we were 6 until we were 16. Every Christmas, every birthday, every summer day, we were together. She was like my sister, closer than my sister really." I studied the photograph more carefully, noticing how the 2 girls leaned into each other, how their happiness seemed to radiate from the faded paper. "What happened?" I asked, though I kept my voice quiet, sensing that this was a tender place in my mother's heart. Mom sighed, and I felt the cushion shift as she settled back against it. "Life happened," she said. "Her family moved away the summer before our junior year of high school. We promised to write, to call, to visit, and we did for a while. But you know how it is. Time passes, life gets busy, and somehow the distance grows even when you do not mean for it to. The last time I heard from her was maybe 20 years ago, just a Christmas card with a brief note." The sadness in her voice was palpable, a weight that seemed to fill the room. Outside, the snow continued to fall, and the wind picked up slightly, causing the windows to creak in their frames. The Christmas tree lights continued their gentle pulse, red and gold and green washing over us in waves. I had an idea then, sudden and clear, the kind of idea that feels like it came from somewhere outside yourself. "What if we found her?" I said. "What if we invited her for Christmas?" Mom turned to look at me, her eyes wide with surprise. The light from the tree caught in them, making them shine. "Oh honey," she said, "I would not even know where to start. It has been so long." But I could see something else in her expression too, beneath the doubt. Hope, fragile and tentative, like the first green shoot pushing through snow. "Let me try," I said.
Give me what information you have, and let me try.
The next 2 days passed in a blur of searching and calling and hoping. Mom gave me the old Christmas card, the return address barely legible, the ink faded to a pale blue that was almost gray. I started with social media, typing Margaret's name into search bars, scrolling through hundreds of faces that were not quite right. I called information services, spoke to operators whose voices were professionally patient as I explained my quest. I reached out to old classmates of my mother's, people she had not spoken to in decades, asking if anyone knew what had become of Margaret.
The house continued its Christmas preparations around me.
Dad brought in more firewood, the logs thunking heavily as he stacked them by the fireplace, the bark rough and cold, smelling of winter and forest. My younger brother practiced carols on his guitar, the strings ringing out in the basement, the notes sometimes right and sometimes wandering, but always earnest. Mom baked and decorated, her hands dusted with flour, her apron spotted with red and green frosting. On the evening of the second day, as the sun was setting and painting the snow outside in shades of pink and lavender, my phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, from a different area code, and my heart jumped as I answered. "Hello," said a woman's voice, warm and slightly uncertain.
"I received a message that someone was looking for me. My name is Margaret." My hands trembled as I held the phone.
I explained who I was, who my mother was, how I had found her through a friend of a friend who still lived in the town where she had moved all those years ago. I told her about the photograph, about the look in my mother's eyes when she talked about their friendship, about Christmas coming and how much it would mean if she could join us. There was silence on the other end of the line, long enough that I worried the connection had been lost. Then I heard a sound, soft and catching, and I realized she was crying. "I would love that," Margaret said finally, her voice thick with emotion. "I have thought about your mother so many times over the years. I have wanted to reach out but always talked myself out of it, thinking too much time had passed, thinking she would have moved on and forgotten." "She could never forget you," I said, and I meant it with my whole heart.
We made the arrangements quickly. She would drive up on Christmas Eve, arriving in the late afternoon.
She would stay through Christmas Day. As we talked, I could hear the smile in her voice, could feel her excitement traveling through the phone line like electricity. When we finally said goodbye, I sat for a moment in the gathering darkness, watching the last light fade from the snow outside, feeling like I had just wrapped the most important present of the season.
Telling Mom was one of the sweetest moments of my life.
I found her in the kitchen, rolling out dough for pie crust, her movements practiced and sure.
The rolling pin made a soft thumping sound against the floured counter, rhythmic and soothing.
I stood in the doorway for a moment, just watching her, this woman who had given me everything, who had filled my childhood with magic and safety and love. "Mom," I said, and something in my voice made her look up immediately, her hand stilling on the rolling pin.
"I found Margaret.
She is coming for Christmas." The rolling pin clattered to the counter. Mom's hand flew to her mouth, and her eyes filled with tears that spilled over immediately, running down her cheeks in silver tracks. She made a sound that was half laugh and half sob, and then she was hugging me, holding me so tight I could barely breathe, and I could feel her whole body shaking with emotion. "Really?" she kept saying, "really, really," and I said yes, 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 holding her just as tightly, feeling her tears wet against my neck. That night, the house felt different, charged with a new kind of anticipation.
Mom could not stop smiling.
She kept picking up the old photograph, looking at it, setting it down, picking it up again. She pulled out more photos from a box in her closet, spreading them across the dining room table, telling stories about each one. Here they were at the lake, both of them sunburned and grinning, holding up fish they had caught. Here they were in Halloween costumes, Margaret dressed as a witch and Mom as a black cat. Here they were on the first day of school, their backpacks almost as big as they were. Dad watched her with such tenderness, his eyes soft, his smile gentle. I have not seen her this happy in years, he whispered to me as we stood together by the tree, adjusting ornaments that did not need adjusting. Thank you for this. Christmas Eve arrived with clear skies and bitter cold. The kind of cold that makes the inside of your nose freeze when you breathe in, that turns your breath into clouds of white vapor, that makes the snow squeak under your boots. But inside, the house was warm and glowing. We had lit candles on every surface, their flames dancing and casting moving shadows. The fireplace crackled with a strong fire, the logs popping and hissing, sending up showers of sparks. The smell of roasting turkey filled the air, rich and savory, mixed with the sweetness of baking pies and the spice of mulled cider simmering on the stove. Mom had changed her outfit 3 times, finally settling on a deep green sweater that brought out her eyes. She kept checking the window, watching the driveway, her hands fidgeting with her necklace, twisting it back and forth. I could feel her nervousness, could see it in the way she moved, quick and restless, unable to settle. What if it is awkward, she said suddenly, turning to me with worried eyes. What if we have nothing to say to each other? What if too much time has passed? I took her hands in mine, stilling them. It will not be awkward, I said. Some friendships are like that. Time does not matter. You will see. At 4:30 in the afternoon, just as the sun was beginning to set and paint the sky in shades of orange and purple, we heard the crunch of tires on the snowy driveway. Mom froze, her face going pale, then flushing pink. Her hand gripped mine so hard it almost hurt. She is here, Mom whispered, and I could hear everything in those 2 words. Fear and hope and joy and terror all mixed together. We watched through the window as a car door opened and a woman stepped out. She was bundled in a long coat, a scarf wrapped around her neck, her breath visible in the cold air. She stood for a moment, looking at the house, and even from inside I could see her take a deep breath, steadying herself. Mom moved then, suddenly, pulling open the front door and stepping out onto the porch. The cold air rushed in, sharp and biting, but neither of them seemed to notice. They stood there, these 2 women who had once been inseparable girls, looking at each other across the space of the front yard. Then Margaret smiled, and it was like the sun coming out. Mom made a sound, something wordless and full of emotion, and then they were moving toward each other, their feet crunching in the snow, and they met in the middle of the yard and wrapped their arms around each other and held on like they would never let go. I stood in the doorway, feeling tears run down my own cheeks, watching this reunion that felt almost holy in its intensity. They were both crying, their shoulders shaking, and they were laughing too, the sounds mixing together, joy and grief and relief all tangled up. The snow had started falling again, light flakes drifting down around them, catching in their hair, landing on their shoulders, and they looked like they were inside a snow globe, a perfect moment captured and preserved. When they finally pulled apart, they kept their hands clasped, as if afraid to lose contact. They were talking, both at once, their words tumbling over each other, and then they were laughing again, and Margaret looked up at the house and saw me standing there, and her face broke into another smile. "You must be the miracle worker," she called out, her voice warm and rich, and I felt my heart expand in my chest. They came inside together, arms linked, tracking snow across the floor that no one cared about. Margaret unwrapped her scarf and unbuttoned her coat, and I could see that she had the same kind eyes as in the photograph, the same genuine smile. She was older, of course, her hair streaked with gray, lines around her eyes and mouth, but there was something ageless about her too, something that matched perfectly with my mother. The house seemed to come alive with her presence. She exclaimed over the decorations, touching ornaments gently, admiring the tree, breathing in the sense of Christmas with her eyes closed and a smile on her face. When she saw the photographs spread across the dining room table, she gasped and moved toward them like they were magnetic, pulling her forward. "Oh my goodness," she said, picking up the one of them at the lake. "I remember this day. We were so proud of those fish. They were tiny, barely bigger than minnows, but we acted like we had caught whales." Mom laughed, that free, young laugh I had heard so rarely. "Your dad cooked them anyway," she said. "Do you remember? He made such a production of it, treating them like they were prize catches." They stood together, bent over the photographs, their heads nearly touching, and they talked and laughed and sometimes cried a little, and the rest of us moved around them, giving them space, letting them have this reunion, this reclaiming of something precious that had been lost. Dad introduced himself, shaking Margaret's hand warmly, and she told him he was a lucky man to have married her best friend. My brother played a carol on his guitar, and Margaret sang along, her voice blending with Mom's in harmony, and it was clear they had sung together before, their voices knowing instinctively how to weave around each other. Dinner was a feast, the table groaning under the weight of all the food Mom had prepared. The turkey was golden and perfect, its skin crispy, the meat tender and juicy. There were mashed potatoes whipped with butter and cream until they were clouds, gravy rich and dark, stuffing fragrant with sage and onions, green beans with almonds, cranberry sauce both jellied and whole berry, rolls so soft they practically melted in your mouth, and sweet potatoes topped with marshmallows that had been toasted to golden brown perfection. We held hands around the table to say grace, and when Dad asked if anyone wanted to add anything, Margaret spoke up. Her voice was soft but clear, filled with emotion. "I just want to say thank you," she said. "Thank you for finding me, for inviting me, for giving me back something I thought I had lost forever. This is the best Christmas gift I could ever receive." Mom squeezed her hand, tears shining in her eyes again, and we all said amen together, the word hanging in the air like a blessing. The meal was full of laughter and stories. Margaret told us about her life, about her work as a teacher, about her own children who were grown now with families of their own. She told us about the years after she moved, how hard it had been to leave, how she had cried for weeks, how she had never quite found another friend like my mother. Mom talked about her life too, about meeting Dad, about having us kids, about the years of joy and struggle and ordinary magic that make up a life. And as they talked, I realized that the time apart had not diminished their friendship at all. It had just been waiting, patient and enduring, ready to bloom again the moment they were reunited. After dinner, we moved to the living room, full and content, and settled into the comfortable furniture. The fire had burned down to glowing coals, and Dad added more logs, the bark crackling as it caught, flames licking up around the new wood. The Christmas tree lights seemed brighter in the darkened room, their colors more vivid, pulsing in that gentle rhythm that felt like the heartbeat of the house itself. Margaret and Mom sat together on the couch, a photo album open across both their laps, and they went through it page by page, remembering. Sometimes they would laugh so hard they could barely breathe, clutching each other, wiping tears from their eyes. Sometimes they would grow quiet, touching a photograph gently, lost in a memory that was bittersweet. "Do you remember the Christmas we decided to go caroling?" Margaret said, "and we got lost in that snowstorm?" Mom groaned and laughed at the same time. "We were so stupid," she said. "We thought we knew the neighborhood so well, but everything looked different in the snow." "We ended up at Mrs. Henderson's house," Margaret continued, "and she made us hot chocolate and called our parents. We were only gone for maybe an hour, but we felt like Arctic explorers who had survived a great expedition." They smiled at each other, and I could see them as those girls again, brave and foolish and full of life, thinking they could conquer the world together. My brother started playing his guitar again, soft background music, and the sound filled the spaces between conversation, gentle and sweet. Outside, the snow continued to fall, steady and peaceful, adding to the blanket that covered everything. The world felt very far away, and this room, this moment, felt like the center of everything that mattered. Margaret told us about the Christmases after she moved, how she had always felt like something was missing, how she would think of my mother on Christmas Eve and wonder what she was doing, if she was happy, if she ever thought of her too. And Mom told her yes, always, every Christmas, every birthday, random moments throughout the years when something would remind her and she would feel that ache of missing someone who had been so important. "Why did we let so much time pass?" Margaret said softly, and there was real pain in her voice. "Why did we not try harder to stay in touch?" Mom was quiet for a moment, thinking. "I think we were both afraid," she said finally. "Afraid that too much time had passed, that we had changed too much, that it would not be the same. And maybe it is not the same. We are not those girls anymore. But this, what we have now, this is just as precious. Maybe more so, because we know how rare it is, how lucky we are to have found each other again." Margaret nodded, wiping at her eyes. "You are right," she said. "We are not the same. We are better. We have lived whole lives, learned so much, become who we were meant to be. And now we get to share that with each other." They hugged again, and I felt my throat tighten with emotion. There was something so beautiful about watching them, about seeing this friendship that had survived decades of separation, that had remained true and strong even when it seemed lost. As the evening wore on, we sang carols together, all of us, our voices blending and rising, filling the house with music. We sang the old ones, the ones everyone knows, and our voices carried the melodies that had been sung for generations, connecting us to all the Christmases that had come before and all the ones that would come after. Margaret had a beautiful voice, clear and strong, and when she sang Silent Night, we all fell quiet to listen. Her voice carried through the room like a prayer, each word clear and full of meaning, and when she finished, there was a moment of perfect silence before we all started breathing again. "That was always your solo in the school Christmas concert," Mom said softly. "I would stand in the choir and listen to you sing, and I would feel so proud that you were my friend." Margaret reached over and took her hand. "You were always my biggest supporter," she said. "In everything. You believed in me even when I did not believe in myself." As midnight approached, we prepared for the tradition of opening one present on Christmas Eve. We each chose carefully, passing boxes around, the paper rustling, ribbons sliding free. The room was full of the sounds of unwrapping, of exclamations of delight, of thank yous and hugs. Mom had a special present for Margaret, wrapped in silver paper with a white bow. Margaret opened it slowly, carefully, as if she wanted to savor every moment. Inside was a frame, and when she turned it over, she gasped. It was the photograph of the two of them in front of the Christmas tree, the one that had started this whole journey, but Mom had had it restored and enlarged, the colors brightened, the details sharpened. But there was something else too. Next to the old photograph, Mom had placed a new space in the frame, empty, waiting. "For the new memories we will make," Mom said softly. "Starting now." Margaret could not speak. She just held the frame to her chest and cried, and Mom cried with her, and they held each other while the rest of us tried not to fall apart ourselves. Margaret had brought presents too, pulled from her car earlier and hidden away. For Mom, she had brought a journal, its cover soft leather, its pages thick and creamy. "I thought we could write to each other," she said. "Real letters, like we used to. Not just emails or texts, but real words on real paper that we can hold and keep." Mom opened the journal and saw that Margaret had already written on the first page. It was dated that very day, Christmas Eve, and it began, "My dearest friend, today I found my way home." We finally went to bed in the early hours of Christmas morning, exhausted and happy, our hearts full to overflowing. I lay in my bed, listening to the house settle around me, hearing the soft murmur of voices from the guest room where Mom and Margaret were still talking, unable to stop, trying to fit decades into hours. Christmas morning arrived with brilliant sunshine, the light bouncing off the snow and flooding through the windows, making everything sparkle and shine. The house was warm and smelled of coffee and cinnamon rolls, and when I came downstairs, I found Mom and Margaret already up, sitting at the kitchen table with steaming mugs, their heads bent together, talking quietly. They looked up when I entered, and their faces were radiant, glowing with happiness. "Good morning, sweetheart," Mom said, and her voice was so full of joy it made me want to cry all over again. We had a lazy, perfect Christmas morning. We opened presents slowly, savoring each one, the room filling with wrapping paper and ribbons and exclamations of delight. We ate too much, cinnamon rolls and fruit and bacon and eggs, and then later, cookies and candy, grazing throughout the day like happy, contented animals. Margaret fit into our family as if she had always been there. She helped in the kitchen, laughing with Dad over his terrible jokes, listening to my brother talk about his dreams of becoming a musician, asking me about my life and my hopes with genuine interest and care. But mostly, she and Mom were inseparable, always touching, always close, making up for lost time with every moment. In the afternoon, we bundled up and went outside, the cold air shocking after the warmth of the house. The snow was deep, coming up past our ankles, and it crunched and squeaked under our boots. The sky was impossibly blue, the kind of blue that only happens in winter, clear and bright and endless. We built a snowman together, all of us working on it, rolling the snowballs until they were huge and heavy, lifting them into place with much grunting and laughter. Margaret found stones for the eyes and a carrot for the nose, and Mom wrapped her own scarf around its neck. We stood back to admire our work, our breath coming out in white clouds, our cheeks pink from the cold and the exertion. Margaret started a snowball fight, catching Mom square in the shoulder with a perfectly aimed throw. Mom shrieked and retaliated, and soon we were all running and throwing and laughing, snow flying everywhere, our voices echoing in the clear air. We played until we were exhausted and soaked and freezing, and then we stumbled back inside, tracking snow everywhere, peeling off wet layers, our fingers numb and our faces glowing. Hot chocolate was waiting, made the old-fashioned way, with real chocolate melted into milk, topped with whipped cream and a sprinkle of cinnamon. We wrapped ourselves in blankets and sat by the fire, sipping slowly, feeling the warmth spread through our bodies, thawing us from the inside out. As the afternoon faded into evening, Margaret told us stories from her teaching career, funny stories about students who had said outrageous things, touching stories about kids she had helped, sad stories about the ones she could not reach. She talked about education with such passion, such genuine love for what she did, and I could see why she had chosen that path, why she had dedicated her life to helping young people find their way. Mom talked about her work too, about the challenges and rewards of running a small business, about the people she had met and the lessons she had learned. And as they talked, I realized that both of them had built good lives, meaningful lives, lives full of purpose and love and contribution. The years apart had not been wasted. They had both grown and learned and become fully themselves. But there was also a sense of something restored, something that had been missing now returned. They were more complete together, their friendship a part of their identity that had been dormant and was now awake again. Dinner was leftovers, but somehow they tasted even better than they had the night before. We ate at the kitchen table this time, more casual, more relaxed, the formality of Christmas Eve replaced with the comfortable ease of family. We told more stories, laughed more, the conversation flowing easily, naturally, like a river that had found its course. After dinner, Margaret said she had something she wanted to share. She went to her bag and pulled out a small box, old and worn, its corners soft with age. She set it on the table and opened it carefully, and inside were letters, dozens of them, tied with a faded ribbon. I kept every letter you ever sent me, she said to Mom, her voice quiet.
Every single one.
I have read them so many times over the years. They were like a lifeline, a connection to a time when I was truly happy, truly myself.
Mom reached out and touched the letters gently, reverently.
I kept yours too, she said. They are in a box in my closet. I could not bear to throw them away, even when years passed and we lost touch. They were too precious. They spent the next hour reading the letters aloud, taking turns, their younger voices coming through in the words, full of dreams and fears and the everyday details of teenage life. We listened, transported back to a time before we existed, seeing our mother as a girl, understanding her in a new way. The letters were full of inside jokes and references we did not understand, but the love was clear, the deep affection and trust that had defined their friendship. They had told each other everything, shared every thought and feeling, been completely open and vulnerable with each other in a way that is rare and beautiful. When they finished reading, there was a long silence, comfortable and full. Then Margaret said, "I want to make a promise.
I do not want to lose you again.
I want to be part of your life, really part of it, not just Christmas cards and occasional phone calls. I want to know your children, watch them grow, be there for the important moments.
I want you to know my children too. I want us to be family, the way we always should have been." Mom nodded, tears streaming down her face.
"Yes," she said.
"Yes, absolutely yes.
We have wasted too much time already.
Let us not waste any more."
They made plans then, concrete plans.
Margaret would come back for Easter. Mom would visit her in the summer.
They would talk every week, really talk, not just quick check-ins but real conversations. They would write letters, filling the journal Margaret had given Mom, creating a record of their renewed friendship. As the evening grew late, we took one more photograph, all of us together in front of the Christmas tree. Margaret and Mom stood in the center, their arms around each other, their smiles wide and genuine, their eyes sparkling with happiness. And I thought about how this photo would go in that frame, next to the one from so many years ago, showing that some things endure, some connections are too strong to be broken by time or distance. When it was finally time for bed, Margaret hugged each of us goodnight, holding on a little longer than necessary, as if she wanted to memorize the feeling of being part of a family again. She and Mom stood in the hallway for a long time, just holding hands, not wanting to separate even for sleep. "I will see you in the morning," Mom said softly.
"I know," Margaret replied.
"But it still feels hard to let go." They finally said goodnight, and I watched them go to their separate rooms, saw them look back at each other one more time before closing their doors. And I felt such gratitude, such overwhelming thankfulness that I had been able to give my mother this gift, this restoration of something so precious. I lay in bed that night, listening to the house breathe around me, feeling the peace and contentment that filled every corner. Outside, the snow had started falling again, soft and gentle, adding to the magic of the night. I thought about friendship, about how it can survive anything if it is real and true. I thought about my mother, about the girl she had been and the woman she had become, and how both versions of her were beautiful and worthy of love. I thought about Margaret too, about how brave she had been to come here, to risk disappointment or awkwardness, to open herself up to the possibility of being hurt. But she had taken that risk, and it had paid off in ways that none of us could have imagined.
The next morning came too soon.
Margaret had to leave, had to get back to her own life, her own family who was expecting her. We all got up early to see her off, even though none of us had slept much, too full of emotion and excitement to truly rest. Breakfast was quiet, everyone trying to hold on to these last moments together. Margaret kept looking around the kitchen, the living room, as if she was taking mental photographs, storing up memories to sustain her until the next visit. When it was finally time to go, we all walked out to her car together. The morning was cold and clear, the sun just beginning to rise, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Our breath came out in white clouds, and the snow crunched under our feet, and everything felt sharp and vivid and almost painfully beautiful. Margaret hugged each of us, thanking us for welcoming her, for making her feel like family. When she got to Mom, they held each other for a long time, neither one wanting to be the first to let go. "This is not goodbye," Margaret said, her voice muffled against Mom's shoulder. "This is just see you soon." "See you soon," Mom repeated, and she was crying again, but they were happy tears, tears of joy and gratitude and hope. Margaret got in her car and started the engine, letting it warm up. She rolled down the window, and we all waved, calling out last-minute messages and reminders. "Drive safely. Text when you get home. We love you. See you at Easter." She pulled out of the driveway slowly, and we stood there watching until her car disappeared around the corner, until we could not see it anymore. Then we stood there a little longer, not quite ready to go back inside, to return to normal life after this extraordinary interlude. Mom turned to me, and her face was radiant despite the tears. "Thank you," she said simply. "Thank you for giving me back my friend." I hugged her, feeling her warmth, her love, her gratitude flowing into me. "It was my pleasure," I said. "Truly." We went back inside, and the house felt different now, fuller somehow, even though Margaret was gone. Her presence lingered in the air, in the memories we had made, in the promise of more visits to come. The Christmas decorations seemed brighter, the tree more beautiful, everything touched with a new kind of magic. Over the next few days, as we took down the decorations and packed them away for another year, Mom talked constantly about Margaret. She would remember something and laugh, or she would get a faraway look in her eyes, lost in a memory. She started writing in the journal Margaret had given her, filling page after page with her thoughts and feelings, with stories she wanted to share, with plans for the future. True to their promise, they talked every week. I would hear Mom on the phone, her voice animated and happy, laughing at something Margaret had said, sharing news about our family, asking about Margaret's children and grandchildren. The friendship that had been dormant for so long was fully awake now, thriving, growing stronger with each conversation. Easter came, and Margaret returned, this time bringing her daughter with her. The house filled with laughter and conversation again, and I watched as the circle of connection expanded, as Margaret's family and our family began to weave together, creating something new and beautiful. Summer arrived, and Mom made the trip to visit Margaret, staying for a whole week. She came back glowing, full of stories about Margaret's town, her home, her life. She had met Margaret's husband, a kind man who clearly adored his wife. She had spent time with Margaret's children, who welcomed her warmly, grateful that their mother had found her friend again. The years began to pass, marked by visits and phone calls and letters, by shared holidays and celebrations, by the steady, reliable presence of friendship. Margaret became a fixture in our lives, as essential as any family member. We celebrated her birthday, she celebrated ours. We were there for her when her mother passed away, holding her as she grieved. She was there for us when my brother got married, dancing at the reception, her joy as genuine as our own. And through it all, Mom and Margaret remained at the center, their friendship the foundation on which everything else was built. They had found each other again, and they were never going to let go. I learned so much from watching them, from seeing how they loved each other, how they supported each other, how they made time for each other no matter how busy life got. I learned that true friendship is worth fighting for, worth maintaining, worth cherishing. I learned that it is never too late to reach out, to reconnect, to say I miss you and I am sorry we lost touch and I want you back in my life.
I learned that some connections are so deep, so fundamental to who we are, that they can survive anything. Time, distance, silence, change, none of it matters if the love is real. And the love between my mother and Margaret was as real as anything I have ever witnessed. Now, years after that first Christmas when Margaret came back into our lives, I look at the photograph that hangs in our living room. The frame holds two images now, side by side. On the left, two young girls stand in front of a Christmas tree, their arms around each other, their faces bright with joy and innocence and the absolute certainty that their friendship will last forever. On the right, two women stand in the same pose, older now, marked by time and experience, but with the same joy in their eyes, the same love evident in the way they hold each other. Between the two photographs, Mom has written a single line in her elegant handwriting. Some friendships are forever, no matter how long the silence. Every time I look at that frame, I feel my heart swell with gratitude and love. I am grateful that I thought to search for Margaret, that I did not give up when it seemed impossible to find her. I am grateful that she said yes, that she took the risk of coming to see us, of opening her heart again. I am grateful for every visit, every phone call, every letter that has passed between them since that first reunion. But mostly, I am grateful for the lesson they taught me, the reminder that love endures, that connection matters, that it is never too late to reach out and reclaim something precious that you thought was lost. This past Christmas, Margaret was with us again, as she has been every year since that first magical reunion. We have new traditions now, things we do specifically because Margaret is here. We make her favorite cookies, we sing the carols she loves best, we tell the stories that have become part of our family lore. And every Christmas Eve, before we go to bed, Mom and Margaret sit together on the couch with the photo album spread across their laps, and they look at the pictures and remember. Sometimes they laugh, sometimes they cry, but always they hold hands, their fingers intertwined, their connection visible and strong. This year, as I watched them, I thought about how one small action, one decision to search for a lost friend, had changed everything. It had given my mother back a piece of herself she thought was gone forever. It had given our family a new member, someone who enriched our lives in countless ways. It had given Margaret a place to belong, a second family who loved her unconditionally. But more than that, it had reminded all of us about what really matters. Not the presents or the decorations or the perfect meal, though those things are lovely. What matters is connection, is love, is the people we choose to keep in our lives and the effort we make to maintain those relationships. What matters is showing up, is being present, is saying I love you and I am here and you matter to me. What matters is not letting fear or pride or the passage of time keep us from the people who make us whole. As I sit here now, listening to the familiar sounds of Christmas, the carols playing softly, the fire crackling, the voices of the people I love most in the world blending together in conversation and laughter, I feel overwhelmed with gratitude. This life, this family, this moment, it is all so precious, so fragile, so worthy of appreciation and care. Mom catches my eye from across the room and smiles, and I see in her face the girl she was and the woman she has become, and I see the happiness that Margaret's return has brought her, the completeness, the sense of being fully herself. And I smile back, hoping she knows how much I love her, how glad I am that I could give her this gift. Margaret is telling a story, her hands moving expressively, her voice rising and falling with the rhythm of the tale. Everyone is listening, leaning in, caught up in the narrative. And I think about how she has become part of the fabric of our family, woven in so tightly now that we cannot imagine life without her. The snow is falling outside again, as it seems to do every Christmas, blanketing the world in white, muffling sound, creating that sense of peace and isolation that makes the warmth inside feel even more precious. The Christmas tree lights pulse gently, their colors washing over us in waves of red and gold and green. The fire burns steadily, its warmth reaching into every corner of the room.
And in this moment, everything feels perfect. Not perfect in the sense of flawless or without challenge, but perfect in the sense of right, of exactly as it should be. We are together, we are safe, we are loved, and we are loving. What more could anyone ask for? I think about the future, about the Christmases to come, and I know that Margaret will be part of them. I know that this friendship, this connection that was lost and found again, will continue to grow and deepen. I know that my children, when I have them, will grow up knowing Margaret as Aunt Margaret, will hear the stories of how she and their grandmother were best friends as girls, will understand that family is not just about blood but about choice and commitment and love. I think about the letters that Mom and Margaret continue to write to each other, filling journal after journal with their thoughts and feelings and experiences. Those journals will be a legacy, a record of a friendship that survived everything, that proved stronger than time or distance or silence. I think about the lesson in all of this, the message that feels so important, so vital. It is never too late. It is never too late to reach out, to reconnect, to say I miss you. It is never too late to admit that you made a mistake, that you let something precious slip away, that you want to try again. It is never too late to choose love over fear, connection over isolation, vulnerability over self-protection. The people who matter, the ones who truly love us, they will always welcome us back. They will forgive the silence, understand the fear, embrace us with open arms and grateful hearts. Because real love, true friendship, it does not keep score. It does not hold grudges. It simply rejoices in reunion and looks forward to the future. Margaret finishes her story, and everyone laughs and applauds. She takes a little bow, her eyes sparkling with pleasure, and then she looks at Mom, and they share a smile that is full of history and affection and deep, abiding love. And I feel my eyes fill with tears again, these happy tears that seem to come so easily at Christmas, when everything feels more intense, more meaningful, more real. Dad starts another carol, and we all join in, our voices blending and rising, filling the house with music and joy. Margaret and Mom sing harmony, their voices weaving around each other with the ease of long practice, and it sounds like coming home, like everything good and right and true in the world. Outside, the snow continues to fall, steady and peaceful, adding to the magic of the night. Inside, we are warm and safe and together, surrounded by love and light and the promise of many more Christmases to come. The fire crackles, the tree glows, the music swells, and everything feels exactly as it should be. This is what Christmas is really about, I think. Not the presents or the decorations, though those are lovely. Not the food or the traditions, though those matter too. Christmas is about love, about connection, about the people who make our lives meaningful and rich and full. It is about showing up for each other, about being present, about saying you matter to me and I am so glad you are here. It is about second chances and new beginnings. It is about forgiveness and grace and the courage to be vulnerable. It is about reaching across the years and the miles and saying I remember you, I miss you, I want you back in my life. And it is about the joy of reunion, the sweetness of finding something precious that you thought was lost forever. As the evening wears on and we begin to grow sleepy, content and full and happy, I look around at the faces of the people I love most in the world. My father, steady and kind, the rock on which our family is built. My brother, talented and passionate, finding his way in the world. My mother, beautiful and strong, more complete now than she has been in years. And Margaret, who has become family, who belongs here as much as any of us. I think about the journey that brought us here, about the old photograph and the decision to search, about the phone call and the invitation, about that first reunion in the snowy front yard. I think about how one small act of love, one decision to try, changed everything for all of us. And I make a promise to myself, sitting there in the warm glow of the Christmas tree, surrounded by the people I love. I promise to never let fear keep me from reaching out. I promise to tell the people I love that I love them, often and sincerely. I promise to maintain my friendships, to nurture them, to treat them as the precious gifts they are. I promise to remember that it is never too late, that love endures, that connection matters more than anything else in this world. The fire burns low, and Dad adds another log, the bark crackling as it catches, flames licking up around the new wood. The Christmas tree lights continue their gentle pulse, steady and soothing, like a heartbeat. Outside, the snow has stopped falling, and the world is silent and still, blanketed in white, peaceful, and perfect. Margaret yawns, covering her mouth with her hand, and Mom laughs softly. "Time for bed," she says, and we all agree, though no one really wants this night to end. We want to hold on to it, to preserve it, to keep it safe and perfect forever. But we cannot hold on to moments, can only live them fully and then let them go, trusting that there will be more moments to come, more nights like this, more chances to be together and to love each other well. So we say our good nights, hugging each other, holding on a little longer than usual, reluctant to separate even for sleep. Margaret and Mom stand in the hallway again, as they do every night she is here, holding hands, not wanting to let go. "I will see you in the morning," Mom says, the same words she always says. "I know," Margaret replies, the same words she always replies. But it still feels hard to let go. They hug one more time, and then they go to their separate rooms, and the house grows quiet, settling into sleep. I lie in my bed, listening to the familiar sounds, the creak of floorboards, the whisper of wind against the windows, the distant hoot of an owl somewhere in the snowy woods. And I feel such peace, such deep contentment, such gratitude for this life, this family, this moment. I think about Mom and Margaret, about their friendship that survived decades of separation, about the love that never died even when it seemed lost. I think about the power of reaching out, of taking risks, of choosing connection over fear. I think about all the people in the world who have lost touch with someone they love, who miss them but are afraid to reach out, who think it is too late or too awkward or too hard. And I want to tell them all that it is not too late, that it is never too late, that the people who truly love us will always welcome us back. I want to tell them about Mom and Margaret, about how they found each other again after so many years, about how their friendship picked up as if no time had passed at all, about how much joy and richness and meaning it has brought to both their lives. I want to tell them that taking the risk is worth it, that the potential for awkwardness or rejection is nothing compared to the potential for reunion and restoration and renewed connection. I want to tell them that life is short, that time passes faster than we think, that the people we love are precious and should be cherished and held close. I want to tell them that pride and fear and embarrassment are poor reasons to stay silent, to stay separated, to let something beautiful die from neglect. I want to tell them to pick up the phone, to write the letter, to send the message, to take the first step. I want to tell them that the person on the other end is probably hoping for the same thing, probably missing them just as much, probably wishing they had the courage to reach out first. But mostly, I want to tell them about love, about how it endures, how it survives, how it waits patiently for us to come to our senses and claim it again. I want to tell them that real love, true connection, it does not fade with time or distance. It might go dormant, might seem to disappear, but it is always there, waiting, ready to bloom again the moment we give it the chance. As I drift toward sleep, warm and safe and content, I hear a sound from down the hall. It is Mom and Margaret, their voices soft and muffled, still talking, still unable to stop, still trying to fit a lifetime into these precious days together. And I smile in the darkness, feeling such love for both of them, such gratitude that they found each other again, such joy that I was able to play a small part in their reunion. The house is quiet now, everyone else asleep, just those two voices continuing their conversation, their laughter soft and warm, their friendship a living thing that fills the house with light and love. And I think that this is what home really is, not a place but a feeling, not walls and a roof but the people inside them, the connections that bind us, the love that sustains us.
This is what Christmas really means, not the presents or the decorations or the traditions, though those are all lovely.
Christmas means coming home, means being with the people who matter most, means celebrating love and connection and the miracle of being known and accepted and cherished exactly as we are. It means second chances and new beginnings. It means forgiveness and grace and the courage to be vulnerable. It means reaching out across the years and saying I remember you, I miss you, I want you in my life. And it means the joy of reunion, the sweetness of finding something precious that you thought was lost forever. As sleep finally claims me, I carry with me the image of Mom and Margaret, two girls who became best friends, two women who found each other again, two souls who were always meant to be connected. I carry with me the sound of their laughter, the warmth of their love, the beauty of their friendship. I carry with me the lesson they taught me, the reminder that it is never too late, that love endures, that connection is what makes life worth living. And I carry with me the promise of tomorrow, of waking up to another day with these people I love, of more conversations and more laughter and more moments of connection and joy. I carry with me the knowledge that this Christmas, this reunion, this restoration of something precious, is a gift that will keep giving, that will ripple out into the future, affecting not just Mom and Margaret but all of us, and our children, and our children's children. Because this is what we do for the people we love. We show up. We reach out. We take risks. We choose connection over fear, vulnerability over self-protection, love over pride. We say I miss you and I am sorry and I want you back in my life. And we open our arms and our hearts and our homes, and we welcome them in, and we hold them close, and we never let go again. This is the story of what happened when we invited Mom's childhood friend for Christmas. But it is also the story of what happens when we choose love, when we take chances, when we believe that it is never too late to reclaim something precious. It is the story of friendship that endures, of connection that survives, of love that waits patiently for us to come to our senses and claim it again. It is a story about two girls who became best friends, who were separated by circumstance, who lost touch but never forgot each other. It is a story about two women who found each other again, who picked up where they left off, who proved that some bonds are too strong to be broken by time or distance or silence. But most of all, it is a story about the power of reaching out, of taking that first step, of saying I miss you and I want you back in my life. It is a story about the courage it takes to be vulnerable, to risk rejection, to open yourself up to the possibility of being hurt. And it is a story about the rewards of that courage, the joy of reunion, the sweetness of restoration, the beauty of love reclaimed. As the night deepens and the house grows quieter still, as even Mom and Margaret finally say goodnight and go to sleep, as the Christmas tree lights continue their gentle pulse and the fire burns down to glowing embers, I hold all of this in my heart. The memories of this Christmas, the joy of this reunion, the lesson of this experience. And I know that I will carry it with me always, this reminder that it is never too late, that love endures, that connection is what makes life worth living. I will carry it with me when I am tempted to let fear keep me from reaching out, when I am tempted to let pride keep me from admitting I was wrong, when I am tempted to let time and distance erode something precious. I will remember Mom and Margaret, standing in the snowy front yard, holding each other like they would never let go. I will remember their laughter and their tears, their stories and their songs, their deep and abiding love for each other. I will remember how one small act of courage, one decision to search and reach out and invite, changed everything for all of us. And I will be grateful, always grateful, for this Christmas, for this reunion, for this reminder of what really matters. Not the presents or the decorations or the perfect meal, though those are all lovely. What matters is love, is connection, is the people who make our lives meaningful and rich and full. What matters is showing up, is being present, is saying you matter to me and I am so glad you are here. What matters is never giving up on the people we love, never letting fear or pride or the passage of time keep us from them. What matters is reaching out, is taking chances, is believing that it is never too late to reclaim something precious, to restore something beautiful, to bring back into our lives the people who make us whole. This is the gift that Mom and Margaret have given me, this lesson that will shape the rest of my life. This is the magic of Christmas, not the tinsel and the lights and the presents under the tree, but the love that brings us together, the connections that sustain us, the courage to reach out and say I miss you and I want you back. And as I finally drift into sleep, warm and safe and surrounded by love, I carry with me the image of that photograph, the one that hangs in our living room. Two images side by side, two moments separated by decades but connected by love. Two girls who became best friends, two women who found each other again, proof that some things endure, that some connections are forever, that it is never, ever too late. The snow outside has stopped falling, and the world is silent and still, blanketed in white, peaceful, and perfect. Inside, the house breathes softly, everyone asleep now, everyone safe and warm and loved. The Christmas tree lights pulse gently, their glow soft and soothing, like a heartbeat, like a promise, like hope itself. And in the morning, we will wake up to another day together, to more conversations and more laughter and more moments of connection and joy. We will make breakfast together, we will exchange more stories, we will simply be present with each other, savoring every moment, knowing how precious it all is, knowing how lucky we are to have found each other again. But for now, in this quiet moment, in this peaceful night, everything is exactly as it should be. We are together, we are safe, we are loved, and we are loving. The people who matter most are under this roof, connected by bonds that cannot be broken, sustained by love that will never fade. This is what happened when we invited Mom's childhood friend for Christmas. We got back something precious that we did not even know we were missing. We learned that it is never too late, that love endures, that connection is what makes life worth living. We were reminded of what really matters, of what Christmas is really about, of what it means to be family. We were given a gift more valuable than anything that could be wrapped and placed under a tree. We were given the gift of reunion, of restoration, of love reclaimed. We were given the gift of watching two people who love each other find their way back together, of seeing the joy and relief and gratitude that comes from being reunited with someone precious. And we were given the gift of hope, the reminder that no matter how much time has passed, no matter how far apart we have drifted, it is always possible to reach out, to reconnect, to say I miss you and I want you back in my life. We were given the reminder that the people who truly love us will always welcome us back, will always forgive the silence, will always embrace us with open arms and grateful hearts. This is the story I will tell my own children someday, when they are old enough to understand. I will tell them about their grandmother and her best friend, about how they were separated and how they found each other again. I will tell them about that first Christmas when Margaret came back into our lives, about the joy and the tears and the laughter, about the magic of reunion. And I will tell them the lesson that Mom and Margaret taught me, the lesson that has shaped my life and will shape theirs too. I will tell them that it is never too late to reach out, to reconnect, to choose love over fear. I will tell them that the people who matter should be cherished and held close, that friendships should be nurtured and maintained, that connection is what makes life worth living. I will tell them to never let pride or fear or embarrassment keep them from the people they love. I will tell them to pick up the phone, to write the letter, to send the message, to take that first step. I will tell them that the risk is worth it, that the potential for joy far outweighs the potential for awkwardness or rejection. And I will tell them about this house, this Christmas, this moment when everything felt perfect and right and exactly as it should be. I will tell them about the snow falling outside and the fire burning inside, about the Christmas tree lights pulsing gently and the voices of the people we love filling the air with warmth and joy. I will tell them about the photograph that hangs in our living room, about the two images side by side, about what it means and what it represents. I will tell them that some friendships are forever, no matter how long the silence, and that love endures, always and forever, if we give it the chance. And I hope that they will carry this lesson with them, that they will remember it when they need it most, that they will have the courage to reach out and reconnect and choose love over fear. I hope that they will build friendships that last a lifetime, that they will nurture and cherish the people who matter most, that they will never let time or distance or silence erode something precious. I hope that they will know, deep in their bones, that it is never too late, that love endures, that connection is what makes life worth living. And I hope that they will pass this lesson on to their own children, creating a legacy of love and connection and courage that will ripple out through the generations. This is what happened when we invited Mom's childhood friend for Christmas. This is the story of reunion and restoration, of love reclaimed and friendship renewed. This is the story of two girls who became best friends, who were separated by life, who found each other again and proved that some bonds are too strong to be broken. But it is also my story, the story of how I learned what really matters, what Christmas is really about, what it means to love well and live fully. It is the story of how one small act of courage changed everything, how one decision to search and reach out and invite brought so much joy and meaning into all our lives. It is the story of how I learned that the best gifts are not the ones wrapped in paper and tied with bows, but the ones that come from the heart, the ones that require courage and vulnerability and love. It is the story of how I learned that showing up for the people we love, being present, making the effort, that is what creates magic, that is what makes life worth living. And it is the story of how I learned that it is never too late, that love endures, that connection is what sustains us through all the challenges and changes of life. It is the story of how I learned to be brave, to take chances, to believe in the power of reaching out and saying I miss you and I want you back. This is the story of what happened when we invited Mom's childhood friend for Christmas. And it is a story that will continue, that will keep unfolding, that will keep bringing joy and meaning and connection into our lives for years to come. Because this is not an ending, it is a beginning, the start of a new chapter in a friendship that was always meant to last forever.